Hey, what's happening, everybody? Hi, welcome to the program. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show. We're here to talk about video games. It's March 2025, and that means it's time to talk about the important things happening in video games here in the year 2025, like Jeff Jarrett and Tony Hawk. And that's about it, really. I don't know. That's I think all that's in Terminator 2. That's the hottest things in video games. What's going on? Tony Hawk, Terminator 2, and Jeff Jarrett. Welcome to the show. I don't really know. I don't really know what's going on anymore with video games. We'll get to all of that in the news, and it's just I don't know, a lot of strange things happening all over the place. Great things, I don't know, like there's some good stuff happening out there. It's tempting to kind of ease into this malaise of like, well, just everyone's getting laid off over and over again. You're like, yeah, that is, yes. I don't want to necessarily brush past that. There's a lot of fucking bad shit happening out there, but a few things that happen here and there that you go like, oh, huh. Let's see how stuff goes. Let's see how stuff goes. Can I? I'll see how much Global Force gold I can get with a copy of. I don't know. We'll figure something out. So. I've been dealing with my backup, my 46 terabyte backup finally finished, and now that's all good and done, and that's pretty nice to have that out of the way and have that server machine all the way backed up, and also to not have to worry about the bandwidth. I went and bought some 10 gigabit Ethernet cards for the server and for my main gaming machine here, and that's actually been nice just for moving things around the network, to be honest. But my connection is 5 gigabits, not 10. But they don't really make 5 gigabit cards that I've seen. They make 2.5s. I'm sure there's some 5s out there somewhere. But anyway. Bought some 10s, throwing things around this network at ridiculous rates of speed. I got a factory reset my router. I don't know. There's something going on with Steam. Steam is the only thing that I'm having like a weird issue with, and it's that I can't log in multiple locations. Normally, because you can open Steam across 5 or 6 clients, and it will, when you download a patch, if it finds it somewhere else on the network, it will just copy it instead of downloading it again. But right now, when I log into Steam on one machine while another machine is logged in, it logs the other one out, which is not how it's supposed to work. Weirdly enough, my Steam Deck seems to be immune from this. So I can still, which is the main thing I use it for anyway, because I only really have one gaming machine that I'm using at the moment. And so it still works for copying things over to the Steam Deck. And so, yeah, I don't know if there's a DHCP issue or it's just some kind of, I don't know what's going on. Is it because all 3 of these machines are plugged into the same switch? And is something, I'll tell you this, it worked before. It worked before my internet changed. So I don't know what's going on. So, so that's something I'm trying to figure out, but whatever, man. It's people ask a lot about this whole idea of like, oh, what's going on with how fast can you download things online now? Do you just get games in seconds? And no. The reality of it, again, I think I talked about some of this last week, but it's no. The internet is not equipped to send you this much stuff at once. For good reason. It's probably expensive to send things that quickly, and most things are fast enough. And so it's a really good for, having multiple devices on a network and what have you. But at the end of the day, like, there are not a lot of things out there other than speed tests that are going to show you a 5 gigabit connection. And so Steam, which I upgraded my PC last year, and that got me onto I had a gigabit connection previously, a 1 gig connection. And on Steam, I was getting somewhere in the neighborhood of like 800 megabits a second for downloads. When I changed over to a different PC with a 2.5 gigabit connection, and also like significantly faster hard drives, NVMe has come a ways since, since all of that stuff, has happened. And so, even just writing to a hard drive is something that can be a limiting factor. And so, this change brought me to, I think it was 1.2, 1.3 in some cases. So, 1.3 gigabits is pretty fast for downloading video games. It's at the point, and it's been this way for a while, but like, this was something I saw people complaining about Monster Hunter on the day of release, that it like, why can't I play it? And it's that old Steam problem of, if you preload a game, sometimes it doesn't know, like, oh, I should decrypt the game now, unless you quit out of Steam completely, and relaunch it, and then on a relaunch of Steam, it will go, oh, this game's out now, and it will decrypt the game. But at some point, and it's been like this, I think, since I had a gigabit connection, downloading the game is faster than decrypting it. And so, like, preloading on Steam is a terrible move. Every time I do it, I regret it. Moving to this 5 gigabit connection, I'm not getting 5 gigabits from Steam. It's just not reasonable. I'm not, like, whatever. It is what it is. But I do get like 1.6 now, which is cool. It's a little faster. So like, I downloaded, like the 2K golf game that's like 50 gigs or something. I think I downloaded that in like a 2 minutes or something, 2.5. It's pretty fast. Whatever. The main reason I got it, honestly, the main reason I wanted faster internet is because of this podcast. And the other videos I do taking forever to upload. And so, being limited to 40 megabits of upload speed was always the problem. And so now that I have 5 gigabits of upload speed, YouTube doesn't take that, but YouTube will take quite a bit. And the upload time for this very show to YouTube has gone down to about 12 minutes. It takes me longer to like write the title, description, and make a thumbnail than it does for the file to upload, which is cool. It's very cool. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. My kids got into Sonic the Hedgehog even more, and it's really bumming me out. It's really bumming me out. Money. It sucks. Thinking about money, it's an easy way to get stressed. It's an easy way to get overwhelmed. Having to think about money, it's no fun. It's no fun. So what are you going to do to help, take control of your finances? Maybe you should check out Acorns. Acorns is a financial wellness app that helps you take control of your money with simple tools that make it easy to start saving and investing for your future. You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you and your money goals. And you don't need to be rich. You can just, kind of mess around a little bit with the spare money you've got now, even if it's just spare change. And you can get going in like 5 minutes. Create an account, start investing, make it happen. It doesn't need to feel impossible, You can, get your mind around this, get your hands around your financial needs, goals, all of that sort of stuff. And, Acorns can help you take that control. And that's nice. Are you ready to take control of your money? Sign up now and join the over 13 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $22 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/Jeff or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorn Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/Jeff. So I try to keep up with, what my daughter is bringing home from school. What's she learning from other kids other than she's got a mouth on her now that getting a little mouthy, hanging out with a bunch of bad kids. She's fine. But I'm trying to figure out what other, because we play some video games here, but it's weird. I'm trying to find games that she'll be able to play. And so I'm trying to find simple stuff. And she's well, she's not interested. They bounce off games in the first 4 seconds. And so it's led to me digging into a lot of I don't know. We played the strawberry shortcake game for the Atari 2600 for longer than anyone should, which led to me going back and playing a bunch of it to get retro achievements on my own time, late at night, laying in bed, playing the strawberry shortcake 2600 game. And then there's also a strawberry shortcake game for the GBA. And she played a bunch of that. And so, it's good, simple, low stakes stuff where hey, there's one button here. There's not really a lot to do. And that's the stuff she's having the most success with. She can still play Infinity Nikki, and she's played a bunch of Princess Peach Showtime, which I think might be, as someone who gets handed a Switch and as someone who just hears "help me" and then is a Nintendo Switch is thrust in my face, I don't think that Princess Peach game is very good at all. It seems kind of fucking terrible. Just in terms of the motion, the movement and abilities at your disposal, it really, I've only seen maybe the worst parts of it or something. I don't know, but it seems really kind of thin. It's changing concepts from level to level, but none of the gameplay that I have seen so far has seemed any good at all. And so she's messing around with it here and there, and not having the best time with it. She's had a much better time with stuff she's played a bunch of Super Mario Wonder, and she's played a bunch of Super Mario Odyssey and really liked both of those. And yeah, and again, some Infinity Nikki, but we're kind of, I don't know, we're kind of out of our Infinity Nikki phase for the moment. But I'm asking her, so what other do you talk about video games with anyone at school? And it doesn't sound like there's a ton of people playing. I mean, it's kindergarten, so I guess it's not too surprising that there's maybe not a massive audience of players at 5 years old. But she started asking me questions about Sonic the Hedgehog, and as I've said before, it's dismaying to have children learn something like this outside of the home, and to bring it back here into the home has been troubling. But I've tried to be supportive, and so okay, what do we? All right, she over this last week, she wanted to see some Sonic the Hedgehog games. Okay. So I turned on Sonic the Hedgehog 1, the first game. I said, what do you think of this? And she hated it. Absolutely hated it. Separately, I tried my son to see if he wanted to play it. And absolutely, within 5 seconds of moving the controller, was fuck this. Like, I don't want to touch, like, just like, nope. And she was like, I've played this before, because I had like a Sonic collection on that Switch. And so she had messed with those games a little bit before, and we're like, this is terrible. Like, okay. Well, let's try something a little newer. And so I went to the My Library page of my PlayStation 5 and looked to see which Sonic games I had. And it was whatever the Sonic and Shadow Generations thing that just came out not that long ago, and Sonic Superstars. And she saw Sonic Superstars. We're like, that one. Like, okay. So I downloaded that. She was excited because she could play as Amy, which is a lady. If you're not a sicko, Amy is a lady hedgehog, I guess, is one of the side characters. If you know anyone, here's the thing. If you know any Sonic characters outside of, and you don't have a good reason for it, but if you know any Sonic characters outside of, let's say, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Shadow, and Dr. Robotnik, and perhaps Big the Cat, if you like to make jokes online, you're sick. You're sick. It's a sickness. So just know that. Amy has a hammer. She's been in games a lot over the years. I don't know. So she started playing Sonic Superstars, and is like finding some success, because it's hard not to, right? You hold to the right and things happen. And then if you get stuck, I taught her how to do the spin dash, which she doesn't remember how to do most of the time. But you just, whatever, you hold to the right until you get to the end of the level. But she was like, she beat the first couple of bosses and all of that. Like, she was doing fine for how I thought it would go. Like, she was actually making things happen, finishing levels, getting to like the third world, let's say, getting to like the fifth level or something, because there's two levels in each, or two acts in each world, or whatever it is. And so she encountered a weird bug where the whole screen went gray, and Amy was just flipping on screen over and over again, which was pretty good too. That was pretty rad. But she was kind of having an okay time, but kind of hitting a wall. Like, she would get to the bonus stages, and I would have to. There's bonus stages where you have to like swing on rings to catch up to a Chaos Emerald, and then the Chaos Emeralds in that game, I guess, give you abilities. Sonic Superstars, I think I only watched, and this is maybe more than I should have done. I believe I watched a streamer named Seb Mall play most of that game. And it seemed like fucking shit. It seemed like absolute fucking shit. Anyway, so we played a chunk of that, and then she kind of lost interest in it. And I don't know what she's going to want to play next. In the meantime, around all of this, because the PlayStation 5 is up and the UI is up, and I'm scrolling through games looking for stuff. My son sees Pac-Man World Repack, the remaster of freaking Pac-Man World. And he goes, "Oh, Pac-Man!" And I'm like, okay. His encounters with Pac-Man have been incidental and accidental, mostly. Where it's like that's like I'm trying to get him to understand up, down, left, and right, and Pac-Man is good for that. And so, like, playing the NES version of Pac-Man with cheats on has actually been a really good way to get like my daughter used to using a D-pad. And so along the way, he learned what Pac-Man was, and at some point he saw like a good 5 minutes of the Pac-Man cartoon, because we have that here, and and so he wants to see Pac-Man. And so we're like, okay, here's Pac-Man World, which I had played. I'd streamed some of the original Pac-Man World, trying to get some retro achievements a while back. And it was, I think, the first time I had ever actually played Pac-Man World, which is a kind of a 3D platformer. It's Pac-Man. And when you jump in the air, he kind of does a butt bounce, and It's terrible. Like the level design, it's like a PlayStation 1 game, right? Like, and it shows. It's like there's a real, like, we don't know how or why platformers exist sort of game. You're like, there's no, it's like this weird, it's still kind of a side scroller in a way. Occasionally you find some ghosts and you jump on a switch and a bunch of dots appear. And so my son just eventually just handed me the controller and I got to play the first 3 levels of Pac-Man World again, which is a miserable experience. And he just wanted, because when you get the power pellets in this game, Pac-Man gets real big. And so my son is fucking stoked. He's like, yeah, big Pac-Man. And so he played it for a while, but he couldn't make Pac-Man big. And so he was like, whatever. And he threw the controller at me. And then I had to play like 3 or 4 levels of Pac-Man World. He said, I want to see you get the power pellets. I'm like, okay. So I ate a bunch of ghosts. Finally, I stopped. Like, for a while, I was like trying to play it like right and because you get all the letters that spell Pac-Man, and there's all, like garbage collectibles and like the worst design levels of like the amount of like backtracking you have to do. Like you go forward, you find a thing, and then you're like, oh, if I want to actually take advantage of this, I need to go back here and do this and do, and do some things here, and then I'll get the letter I need, and then I can go forward. And finally, I was just like, dude, fuck this. Like, he just wants to see me eat ghosts. I'm just going to keep going forward and eating ghosts. Like, why am I doing this at this point, I'm doing it to myself, trying to get 100% on these Pac-Man World levels. And so we did that for a while, and I think eventually my wife came home and he got up and ran away, and I was like, oh, cool. I can fucking turn this off. I can turn off Pac-Man World. Like, maybe I should uninstall Pac-Man World when no one is looking. And so that's been how it's been going here with the kids and video games. It's real strange. It's real weird around here. There's a kid at my daughter's school. Like, I asked her, said, what other games are kids playing at your school? And she said, Rainbow Friends. And this kid plays Rainbow Friends. And I was like, and I just, it's like, sometimes you forget you're talking to a 5-year-old. Like, what is this? Was it a phone game? Was this some kind of phone game? She's like, oh, what? No. A, she wouldn't know. Also, so I looked it up, and it's a Roblox game. It's a game inside of Roblox, and it's like some kind of fucking horror, it's some kind of like Five Nights at Freddy's derivative video game kid horror thing, just like everything else is now. It's just like, oh, I don't know, here's what. And it looked like I watched a bunch of video of it, and there are monsters that walk around, and when they see you, you need to like run around a corner and like hide under a cardboard box like you were Solid Snake. And so you like hit a button, and it looks like you hit a button, and the box flops over, and you hide until the monster goes away. And you have to like walk around this environment and get things. Food, I think it is. I think you're collecting food. And then you're bringing it back to a home base or something. And I don't know what the. Yes, Fat Scout says someone needs to do a sociological paper on why the kids nowadays love mascot horror stuff so much. I don't know what the, because like I would say that this kid, as a kindergartner, is probably even too young to know what a Five Nights at Freddy's is. And so it's this weird thing of like, I think kids like, because kids, I think if I had to guess, kids talk about monsters all the time. My son is, constantly, like, for a while, I would have to pretend to be a monster and chase him around, and he would laugh and run away. And, like, we haven't been doing much of that lately. But, like, kids love monsters. They hate monsters. They're scared of monsters. But they love monsters. And so there's just been a lot of, like, tickle monster type stuff over the, months and whatever else. And so I think that they're just, like, kids just are drawn to the idea of chasing each other and being chased, and monsters fulfill that in a very real way. That's probably That's probably where this all stems from, right? Is just some kind of primal, it's just like, hey, we want to play tag. We want to run away. We want to chase people. We want to be chased. Like that's, I don't know. Maybe that's where it all stems from. I don't know. But now I have to wonder, like, and she didn't say Roblox at all. Like I didn't even realize it was Roblox until I loaded it up and went like, oh, this is fucking Roblox, dog. Damn. And so, yeah, I don't know. Like another kid plays Minecraft, and I think I said before that I put Minecraft on that Switch for her and let her mess with it for like 5 minutes, and she was like, basically like, fuck this. Like, okay, you might like this a whole lot later. It's complicated, but okay. Yeah, and so I don't know. It's just more, more weird adventures on the road of like, showing kids video games and whatever else. Weirdly enough, anytime I play a video game here on this computer, or anytime I play a video game and the kids are awake, they run right in and they're like, hey, let me play. And I'm like, no, you can't. I'm shooting people in the head in here. You can't play this. Okay, you can play a little bit of this, but no, you can't. No. One game that has never happened with, because I've been playing a little bit lately, Terraria, and I don't know why. If there's just something about Terraria that when it's on this screen, it doesn't register to them as a video game, because they never ask any questions about it. I could sit here and dig and put up torches for like an hour and a half, and they will not ask a single question about it. It's weird. I don't understand why that's happening, but I don't know. I have not played that much Terraria over the last week. But that retro achievements thing they added to it, that mod, dragged me back into it in a way that I was not expecting. Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about some video games and this disturbing looking energy drink that I have sat in front of me that is terrifying. We'll be right back. As we move into March, it's time to shake off the winter blues and get ready for a fresh start. This season, tackle thinning hair and hair loss with the iRestore Elite. It's a clinically proven solution designed to help you regrow hair with 282 lasers and LEDs, delivering light therapy directly to your scalp. Think of it as rejuvenating treatment for your hair follicles, giving you a new look for the spring season. It's March is like, it's that weird thing. It's, it's still a little cold outside, but you're ready for a change. Like you're itching to just like get outside and make some things happen. Well, before things warm up, why don't you make something happen with the iRestore Elite? It's lightweight, hands-free, painless. It works while you relax and prepare for the warmer days ahead. It's easy to use and very comfortable. You slap this thing on your head. You put it on. It's like a helmet. It's like a laser helmet. And then you put that on there. You plug it in. You push the button on it. It beeps at you. And it takes 12 minutes. 12 minutes a day of you just hanging out. Maybe you're looking at your phone, playing video games, looking at your computer. Anything is possible. As long as you're, not turning your head upside down and it's, let's be reasonable here. But hey, you can do a lot of stuff while you're relaxing and enjoying that laser and LED power. 282. That's a high number. That's a lot. Here's another number for you that's even higher. 625. That's right. You can get $625 off the iRestore Elite when you use the promo code JeffG at iRestoreLaser.com. That's $625 off the iRestore Elite at iRestoreLaser.com. Get the hair regrowth device you've been wishing for and start feeling like yourself again. In a 4-month double-blind clinical study performed by a board-certified dermatologist, 100% of study participants grew more hair with iRestore's laser and LED technology. So you can feel confident that you're buying a system with proven results. And if it doesn't work out for you, if it's not your thing, if you're like, the helmet life, not for me, they offer a 12-month money-back guarantee. So you can try it risk-free. If for some reason your hair doesn't make a glorious return, you'll get a full refund. No weird questions, just fabulous hair or your money back. Give yourself the gift of hair confidence this spring. For a limited time only, you can get $625 off the iRestore Elite when you use the code JeffG at iRestoreLaser.com. That's $625 off the iRestore Elite at iRestoreLaser.com. And again, the promo code is JeffG. Support the show. Let them know we sent you. Hair loss. It's frustrating. You don't have to fight it alone. Thanks to iRestore. All right, we're back. Splitgate 2 has been running an alpha for the last little bit here. I have been messing around with that a bit, and when I feel like the Splitgate was such a weird thing. It came out at a very interesting time when people were kind of craving Halo, and there hadn't been a Halo for a while, and whatever else. And so Splitgate, if you have not played it, it is a first-person shooter that was, somewhat Halo-esque in its pacing and movement, but also gave you a portal gun. And so you would shoot portals onto walls, and you would, be able to shoot through the portals at other players or walk through the portals. Portals. You have to think with portals while playing a first-person shooter. It's cool. And it took off in a way that I don't think that anyone expected, including the developers of the game. And so at some point a while back now, they said like, oh, hey, we can't really do the stuff. Like we really want to do a lot to this game, and it's hard for us to do it with the tech decisions that maybe we made early on and while you're all playing it and blah, blah, blah. So we are working on Splitgate 2. And so now they're running an alpha for this, and they're due out, not too far off from here, I think. And I played a little bit of that, and it's nice. I don't know. It seems pretty good. It doesn't seem that different. Like there's a little more character progression or a different character progression is kind of what it seems like. But as far as like the net play goes, it felt pretty good. And it is still that same basic game of like, hey, there are going to be some walls here that are accepting of your portal weapon. And so you can open some portals here. You can shoot your portals over enemy portals to kind of close them or destroy them, to kind of shut them down a little bit. And some ideas there around, kind of the tactics involved. And, it's hard to judge it because it's an alpha, but they do have some kind of leveling progression for weapons and characters and stuff that I remember the game getting kind of rotten with. Not rotten. I mean, it had a lot of all over the place cosmetics, Splitgate 1, and felt kind of weird in a way. And this game maybe will end up with all of that stuff. I would assume that they would. Well, I guess I shouldn't assume this, but something about the path of Splitgate to Splitgate 2 makes me feel like anything they sold you for Splitgate 1, they should just be giving you in Splitgate 2. I don't know if it really applies, because it's been a very long time. I played Splitgate 1 kind of on its ascent, and then it blew up real big. I was like, that's weird. It's a cool game, but not, I don't know. But people were just jonesing for that specific type of shooter. And good on them. I don't know. Like, again, the first reveal of Splitgate 2 and some of the stuff they did, I felt like the things I was seeing out of people that really liked Splitgate 1, they felt a little subdued is not the word. Like I saw some real negativity from people out of the announcement of Splitgate 2. And so I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is going to be a disaster. Like, what's going on? Like, but I don't know. I loaded it up and it seems fine. I wouldn't say that I played an absolute ton of it, but like the shooting feels good. The weapons at your disposal feel all right. It's got modes, and we'll see how that ends up doing. Like that's going to be a curious one, because Splitgate 1 had found an audience, right? And it's so hard for a game to find an audience these days. That's the thing that, especially a multiplayer game, especially a multiplayer shooter, the very idea of catching on and all that stuff just seems such a like just lightning in a bottle kind of thing, man. The idea that they had caught something was cool at all. And then for them to be like, oh, by the way, now we have to make a sequel because this game is not the game it needs to be for the number of people that are now playing it, was like, oh man, are they going to lose everybody in the process? Is this going to go bad for them? What's going to happen? And I don't know. We'll see how it all kind of pans out for them in the end. But looking at Splitgate 2 so far, I think it seems pretty cool, and it's nice to have something that's a little bit different out there. I think that's what I'm looking for, and it's always hard because you find a game like Blindfire. The game that it's a first person shooter. You play it in the dark, and there's some weird tricks that they do around that. I streamed it a while back. Double 11 is making that, and they put that out as like, this is a cool idea, but like the matchmaking times are long because it's not a very popular game, and so you kind of have to either find more people to play it with or hope that it catches on or whatever. And so I don't know. It seems like a very tricky needle to thread when you're like, okay, now we need to iterate on this. We need to have a clean break from the popular game into the sequel, and let's go. And and different studios have different theories on that and when to do it. EA just kind of changed direction on it not that long ago. I'm not that they've announced anything, but for a while in their earnings calls, people would go like, when's Apex 2? And they would go like, dude, that's crazy. Like, no, that's not what you do. You iterate on the game where they are because the players are already there. If you made Apex 2 and started from scratch, you would have to start from scratch. It's not quite as cut and dry as that. As you've got a brand name, you've got a whatever, right? You've got a you've got a brand that you can build off of, and so people would show up for Apex 2 on day one. It's just like, you're then splitting it of like, oh, some people are like, Apex 1 is better. Like the Payday situation where Payday 3 came out and they did not get the job done, and so more people are playing Payday 2 than Payday 3, and they're still desperately trying to make Payday 3 work and making it, that's been on PlayStation Plus and all this stuff, I think by now, Game Pass, whatever, as they like try to get people to play Payday 3. And yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of changes like that. And so the most recent earnings call from EA, they were like, yeah, maybe we need a bigger shakeup in that department than we thought. And so maybe there's so, there's kind of like something there of like, oh, maybe if the players aren't there anymore, then maybe we do need to try to do something grand in scope to bring them back. And that's why you would make an Apex 2. That's why you would go ahead and make a full-on sequel and a full-on break, and then you have what they did with Overwatch and Overwatch 2 and that fucking shit show. They're out there saying like, oh, we got perks and everything's better now. Like they just had like their big fancy, like, please try the game again. Patch not that long ago. Was it last week before? Anyway, it's hard out there. My point ultimately is that I think it's hard out there to A, attract a player base, and then B, hang on to it once you got it. It's a very with shooters, more than just about anything else, but this doesn't just necessarily apply to shooters. Is how do you get people to move from your game to your next game? Do you just update your game forever? You can do that if it's free to play, but if you're relying on selling someone another $70 thing, like say Call of Duty is, then you would damn well better be Call of Duty. Because no one else is going to be able to convince people to go spend that kind of money. And even then, a lot of them probably just play Warzone for free. Yeah, I don't know. It's a scary world out there for a lot of different types of games. And I think for shooters, incredibly so. But Splitgate 2, from what I played of it, it's very attractive. I think it's got a nice look to it. It feels good. The weapons and movement and everything, like it's got what it needs in order to continue to be Splitgate, at least for speaking as a casual player of Splitgate 1. And I'm sure that, you know, maybe there are people who played thousands of hours more of Splitgate than I did that probably have a very different take on it. And we'll kind of see how that all goes. And of course, yeah, Marvel Rivals is out there. I've started to see people not necessarily shitting on Marvel Rivals. Obviously, it is still very popular and all that, but I'm finding that there are people who have started to put the time into Marvel Rivals in a serious way and been like, you know what? The depth is not here. I don't think that's every person who's playing it, but I've seen people bounce off of Marvel Rivals in ways that I did not expect. That maybe they're like finding the skill ceiling and being like, okay, fuck this. Back to the game I like to play. Mr. Dew's Castle. Back to the game I like to play. So yeah, I don't know. It's hard out there. Even when your game is like a massive success, apparently you're laying people off and people are angry all over the place. I have something in here that looks like a disaster. This showed up at the P.O. Box. I believe Shiny sent this. It was a 5-pack, but one of the cans had burst open. And the other 4 were still sound. But this is Toxic Waste. This energy drink says Toxic Waste on it. Mythical Mango. All the best Toxic Waste comes in flavors. 160 milligrams of natural caffeine, which is, I don't know, that's not that high. But it does say here it's going to do invisibility, laser vision, and power up. Brings a 22nd century approach to energy, focus, and legendary enhancements. We combine our ingredients to give our consumers the boost they need to enjoy the modern experiences of their modern worlds. That's stupid, but okay. Let's try this out. Mythical Mango. Smells like mango. Well, actually, you know what? It smells more like peach. It smells more like a peach drink than a mango. That's very mythical. Okay. Like a very strong, very sweet smelling, peachy kind of scent. Now let's try it. Oh, I have to try another one here. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's like they're trying to have a sour, like a slightly sour drink here. But it's not especially sour, I would say. It's kind of a mango flavor. Like, it's okay. It's not, it's not killing me, which is always nice. But it just tastes like mango and chemicals. Tastes a little bit more like peach rings, really. I mean, I'm getting like a little bit more of a peach vibe than a mango. And, they'll mix up peach and a mango sometimes. That's, yeah, I don't know. This is kind of, I don't know. I guess I would say I'm a little underwhelmed by it. Let's see if we can get it on the list here. You can go to energy.guard.bike if you want to see the energy drink list. And we've got 186 drinks on the list here. Faxicandi Booster Twisted Strawberry is at the bottom of the list. Rockstar Zero Fruit Punch at the top. This is now that I'm like sitting here with it and not continuing to drink it, and it's just kind of sitting here inside of me, it's like, bleh. Bleh. Like my mouth feels like it is involuntarily puckering ever so slightly. Like the drink didn't taste that sour, but it's like it's having a souring effect on me, which is strange. It's an astringent. No. It's worse than Beyond Raw Lit Jolly Rancher Watermelon, which is our number 78. It's worse than G Fuel Miami Nights, which is at 85. It's worse than Ghost America Pop, which is 109. Which, as far as I can tell, is just they rebranded. They must have not continued the FaZe esports partnership at Ghost, because I'm pretty sure America Pop is just FaZe Pop with a different can. Pretty sure it's the exact same thing. This is worse than the G Fuel PewDiePie flavor, which is at 115. You know what? It's a little worse than Zoa Fruit Punch, which is at 132. The Rocks energy drink. That guy can go fuck himself. It is not as good as Rise Fuel's Tiger's Blood, which is at 147. It's right here with Jimweed Tangerine, which is at 148. That's a pretty recent addition to the list. It's better than Rat Bastard Blood Orange, which is at 155. I think where we're at here is that this is... it's better than Rip It Energy Tribute Active Mandarin Live Wild Lime. It is not as good as Muscle Farm Combat Energy Black Cherry. Is it better or worse than Bang Lemon Drop Sweet Iced Tea? It's worse. So it's our new number 152. Congratulations to everyone involved. Toxic, Waste, Mythical, Mango. And that is our new number 152. Like, yuck. Like, it's not, it's I don't know. Yeah, now that I'm kind of sitting here with it, it's like, ugh. Which maybe that's a smart way for them to make a drink, is to like make it that as soon as you stop drinking it, it feels bad. Because then you're like, I've got to keep drinking it. I've got to keep drinking this. Blech. Yeah, that feels weird inside. Let's go to the news. In the news, I closed the program that keeps the news stories. Acclaim is back. This was announced earlier this morning. Acclaim Entertainment is back as they're coming back as an indie games publisher. Is the kind of log line here that they are bringing back the Acclaim name. The Acclaim name has bounced around a little bit over the years. When Acclaim went under, it was immediately purchased by a company that brought it back. They called it Acclaim Games instead of Acclaim Entertainment, and they did some really shitty looking, shady free-to-play stuff and just put the Acclaim logo on it. And probably no one ever saw that version of Acclaim, because I don't think any of those games were very popular. And it was at a time that free-to-play was not where it is now. And so that version of Acclaim kind of came and went very quickly, and we haven't really seen the brand be used again. It's been bounced around a little bit. I did a brief bit of looking into it. It looks like the previous owners were a company called Gregalicious Entertainment or something like that, LLC. That, if I'm reading right, if the chain of me clicking on links was right, it's a company that made an FPGA-based ColecoVision. They ended up owning it. I'm not 100% positive on that one. Anyway, Acclaim is back. Just as a reminder, it is Acclaim with 2 C's. It's never been 2 K's. The logo always looked like K's, but the company was always spelled with C's. People get that wrong all the time. Alex Joseph is the man behind this return. And he told VentureBeat's Dean Takahashi, it's a relaunch and revitalization of the Acclaim brand with a completely new team. Some players have an association with Acclaim in the past, but it's an all-new team. First and foremost, the new Acclaim is going to support indie developers and new original IP. It will provide all of the resources needed to bring their games to the widest possible audiences. Alex Joseph has been in video games for a very long time. He has been running I think Graffiti Games was him. I think that was they were. I want to say that was the company he was involved with before. But yeah, Alex Joseph has been in video games for a long time. I remember he was doing PR for like Infogrames back in the day. I think he was at an agency doing PR. Anyway, long history of being in this business for whatever that's worth. But he says that they are looking to, basically become a publisher and to kind of publish indie games. I don't really know what, I always struggle with what the benefit is when it comes to resurrecting these weird old names. Like, what do you get as a marketer? Like when you're trying to, and especially in this case where you're like, okay, we're going to be a publisher and we're going to be publishing indie games. And you're like, okay, so you got indie games and you're going to just slap the Acclaim logo on it. Like the Acclaim logo is not, I have never associated the Acclaim logo with like awesomeness, which is unfair because I think Acclaim definitely, like, once you get out of this 8 and 16-bit era, Acclaim was just like everybody else. People loved Turok at the time. Say what you will about Turok. I will say what I will about Turok. Those games are all bad. But people liked Turok. People, they made the South Park games for a good long time, but they perhaps became best known for publishing Midway's stuff before Midway started publishing their own stuff. And so you have some people out there that think that Acclaim made Mortal Kombat or NBA Jam, which they eventually wrestled the NBA Jam license away from Midway, and they put out a game called NBA Jam Extreme that came out in arcades, which Acclaim had not made a lot of arcade games, but they put that out in arcades because they thought they would make money on it, I guess, and they did a PlayStation and Saturn version of it. That game absolutely fucking sucked. But they also made BMX XXX, so who can say? A lot of ups and downs when it comes to Acclaim. This weird thing. This is not to sidebar here for a while, but I was looking at TikTok as one does, and I came across an account. It was a woman who, like, her father was one of the founders of Sculptured Software. And Sculptured they developed a lot of games for Acclaim. The studio was sold to Acclaim at one point, and so they did the SNES version of Mortal Kombat, like 1, 2, and 3, I think. But they did 1, which is a terrible fucking video game on the SNES. And so it was this weird thing where, like, she was on this video and he had a, she was like at his house or whatever it was, but he had a big framed thing of all the box covers of all the games that they had worked on. And so it was all these Mortal Kombat boxes and Simpsons and just like all the, the ups and downs of that era of Acclaim. Like Sculptured touched a lot of that stuff. And so, like the way that she had heard the story or whatever, the way she simplified it or whatever it was, because she didn't seem like she played a lot of video games, was my dad made Mortal Kombat. And so, like, every comment on that video is just like, no, is your dad Ed Boon? I don't think that is your dad John Tobias? I don't think. And so there was like a series of videos where finally there's like a video of him off camera explaining, like, no, so what we did was we made these versions for this, because she was just like, I don't know what port means, but okay, like, I don't know, my dad made Mortal Kombat, like, I don't know. and a bunch of people in the comments going, "Arr!" Until he was finally like, so here's what happened, and explaining it and all of this stuff. It was like a very silly, like I'm sitting there watching it going like, oh, this is going to go bad. And then I look at the comments like, oh yeah, that went bad. Okay. Yeah. And finding the way through. And it was an interesting little ride through that era of Acclaim. So I don't know. This is Acclaim is back. This VentureBeat piece says one of the key goals for the relaunched Acclaim is to resurrect and revitalize its beloved portfolio of classic IP enjoyed for years by millions of players. Which I don't know, like, what is that IP? What is the IP that they own and control? Like, Forsaken? Are we going to get a new Forsaken? Because that's cool. They published the Burnout games in the early days, but they don't own Burnout. They did a ton of licensed games that they do not own the rights to. If we just look at like games that Acclaim published that were original IP that they probably own, it's probably a pretty short list now. You think Night Dive just owns Forsaken now? Yeah, right. Some of that IP got dealt off, so I don't know what IP traveled with the Acclaim name and how much of it got sold off to other people, because when Acclaim went out of business, they started there was an auction for all of this shit. And so the IP rights were kind of carved up at the time. So I don't know. I would be really curious to know what this incarnation of Acclaim actually owns and what they might be able to actually do. Because I think anything of any actual value has probably long since been sold off. You know, Turok is a licensed property because it's, you know, it was originally a comic book. Yeah, is Revolt theirs? Is, you know, Spirit of Speed 1938 theirs? Does Acclaim own Narc is the question. No, they do not. Midway. Warner Brothers owns Narc, so you will never... but you also are demanding a sequel to the game. That sequel came out on PlayStation 2. It's called Narc, and it has Bill Bellamy in it. And you can do the drugs or turn them in. You can do the drugs for power-ups or turn them in for money. Just like real life. That's the power of Narc on the PlayStation 2. So yeah, I don't know what Acclaim even owns at this point. So the like, what is the value of the Acclaim? Like, what is purchased here? I'm going to look up here published. I'm going to see if I can find a list of games that Acclaim published and just see if we can eyeball it. Tiger Heli, that's not theirs. The WWF stuff, obviously they had the license for a lot of that, and they, right up until WWF Attitude, had the WWF license, and then when THQ got that from them, they ended up with the ECW license for a very brief period of time while there was still an ECW, and so they did a couple of ECW games and then stopped making wrestling games completely. Wizards and Warriors might be theirs. That was something that, you know, like Rare developed those games, but I don't know if Rare still owns it, or if rights on that reverted to Rare, or what we don't know what the publishing arrangement was for that. They published the SNES version of Populous, which is not theirs. Beetlejuice, they published that. That's not theirs. Trog is a Midway game. That's not theirs. TNC Surf Designs Thrilla's Surfari. They published that, but that is not theirs. They published the Terminator 2 games. They published the Steel Empire for the Genesis, which, if I remember right, is a scrolling shooter. Horizontal shooter, maybe? Like a steampunk thing, if I remember right. But I don't know, maybe I'm inventing that game whole cloth. So maybe they have that. I don't know. Krusty's Funhouse, that's not theirs. George Foreman's KO Boxing, Alien 3, The Incredible Crash Test Dummies is not theirs. RoboCop 3 is surely not theirs. NBA Jam Mortal Kombat 2, that's not theirs. Spider-Man and Venom and Maximum Carnage, that's not theirs. Rise of the Robots. Here, hang on. Rise of the Robots. That was originally released by Time Warner Interactive on other platforms, but it looks like they maybe did the SNES and Genesis versions. They probably don't own that. Anyway, so I'll move forward to a couple, like to the generation after this, because it felt like they really didn't start fucking with their own IP until like PlayStation 2 era type stuff. So maybe that's a better way to look at it. They published Scorcher for the Saturn in Japan. NBA Jam 99. That's not it. Trick Style. I don't know. Does EA own Trick Style? Because that was a Criterion Games game. It's possible that they own the rights to Trick Style somehow, but I'm going to say probably not. They published Armorines Project Swarm, but Armorines is a comic book from Valiant. But they bought Valiant Comics, right? Didn't they buy the comic book company that made Turok? So whatever, that probably got sold off immediately as part of the bankruptcy or whatever. Let's see here. They published Dead or Alive 2 for the Dreamcast in Europe. Mary-Kate and Ashley Magical Mystery Mall. Dave Mira Freestyle BMX. They published those. Vanishing Point, which is the driving game that people were excited about for about 3 months, and then it came out and they're like, oh no. Blast Lacrosse for the PlayStation. Kevin Sheedy AFL Coach 2002. Aggressive Inline. They may very well own the rights to Aggressive Inline if that didn't like revert to Z-Axis, the developer. That's a possibility. Legends of Wrestling. That was theirs. That was them attempting to make wrestling games when they no longer had a license to make them. So they just went out and licensed individual. Oh, Vex. Of course. What game are you going to use to relaunch the new Acclaim? It's Vex. Everyone's favorite platforming fucking dude. I was going to say bat, but then I hovered over it to see the box art. That's not a bat. That's just a fucking guy with pointy ears. Vex came out in 2003. It's got 2 X's on it, so you know it's extra good. That was not a very good game. Extreme G Racing, that might be, perhaps that's theirs. Powerpuff Girls, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 2. Distributed that in Europe, I guess. Yeah, not a long list of things. So like when you like what IP does Acclaim own? It can't be a very large list. And I doubt it would be a very lucrative list either. So yeah, I don't really know what you're getting there. When you are buying that name, like for them to say, hey, we want to rebuild, we want to relaunch the, and the way that VentureBeat like spells it out here almost says to me that they didn't look it up ahead of time. Because this VentureBeat article says it wants to resurrect and revitalize its beloved portfolio of classic IP. Like, oh yeah, are you going to go get the Simpsons license? I don't know if beloved is the word I would use for any of those fucking Simpsons games, but all right. BMX Triple X, is that beloved? Is that a beloved franchise? Is it enjoyed by millions of players? Is that? So. Yeah, I don't know. Funding, marketing, and PR support. That's the sort of stuff that they're looking to give to these independent studios as they do these deals to publish games. To ensure this, here's a quote from the article. To ensure this vision comes to life, Acclaim has assembled an advisory board comprised of esteemed industry leaders, including Russell Binder at Stryker Entertainment, Mark Kaplan at Ridge Partners, and Jeff Jarrett at Global Force Entertainment. Their experience and invaluable guidance will play a pivotal role in shaping the future of Acclaim's classic franchise. This reads like a press release. What is happening here? Is this a press release? No, this is an article on VentureBeat. Okay. Okay. Their expertise in investment and management will help foster an environment ripe for nurturing. So whatever, they've got a board. They've got some. They've got some people on board to advise them. And one of those the new Acclaim's Entertainment's leadership and board spans the entertainment industry, licensing icons, professional athletes, living music legends, and seasoned veterans who have defined the intersection of video games and pop culture. And then the very next sentence, two-time Hall of Fame wrestler Jeff Jarrett, with over 3 decades of experience in the sports, entertainment, and video game industries, underscores how this wealth of expertise will shape the future of Acclaim. And then, yes, they've got a lengthy quote from Jeff Jarrett. The wrestler, Global Force Gold, the guy with selling gold. He's in AEW these days, and he's got a podcast, and he was in Spring Breakers. But yeah, his business ventures, or at least the ones we've known about outside of wrestling, have not always sounded great. So it's kind of I don't. Anyway, here's the quote. For more than 3 decades, I've had the privilege to have been a part of both the wrestling and gaming universes. Which is technically, okay. Well, that's technically true. Okay. And I'm thrilled to now be a partner in the revival of Acclaim, an iconic publisher known for releasing some of the most legendary games of the 80s and 90s. Like, infamous is the word. Well, whatever. You're not going to use that, right? But Acclaim's success was piggybacked on the IP rights of licenses they did not own and made terrible games for, and Midway's stuff. The best Acclaim games were fucking Mortal Kombat 2 and NBA Jam. That's it, man. And then, you get into the later era, you get into the PlayStation 1 and 2, like there's, Burnout was a cool game from the get-go. Again, there was like things that the Acclaim name appeared on that were not bad games. But dude, no, it's like iconic is not the legendary games is a real stretch here, even for a professional wrestler, even for someone who's trying to put butts in the seats here. In a statement, said Jarrett in a statement, from my early involvement with the publisher's hit 16-bit WWF titles to my experience helping shape the TNA wrestling series, which there's more to that, but I'll stop here. Jeff Jarrett did not appear in any 16-bit video games. That's an easy mistake to make. But he did not appear in any games made by Acclaim back then. The first WWF game that the first game he was in was a WCW game. And then after that, he was in whatever THQ WWF game there was at the time. Okay, no, he was in WWF Attitude, so that is, he was in an Acclaim. He was in one Acclaim video game. The last WWF video game that Acclaim ever made, in fact, he was in that. But that was a PlayStation game. That was not a 16-bit game. Let's not get too hung up on that. He's a professional wrestler. Are you expecting him to know the difference between 16-bit and 32-bit? I know that an Alex Joseph would, but they maybe should have. Who cares? Who cares? It's a mistake. Who cares? I would say I care because it's him trying to represent himself as more than he is when it comes to his appearances in wrestling games and his involvement in them. But people have said much. People have told the greater fibs on the web than this in the past. So it's okay. Anyway, he goes on. From my early involvement with the publisher's hit 16-bit WWF titles, which was not an early involvement, it was a late involvement. He was in the very last one. To my experience helping shape the TNA wrestling series, which spawned the first video game wrestler to become a full-time roster member in the Squared Circle, I've seen firsthand the type of impact great games can have on players and fans. So I don't know one way or the other how much he did to shape the TNA wrestling series, which is one game. I think there was a mobile game, so technically I guess maybe there's two. If you count the PSP version of the game as a separate game and not just a portable version of the same game, then I suppose the TNA wrestling games are a series. Maybe, I guess. But he's right. They did a thing with that TNA game, which Midway made. Mark Turmel of NBA Jam fame was the face of, I talked to Mark about the TNA game right before Midway went out of business. Recurring theme with Jeff Jarrett in these wrestling games. In the very last Acclaim WWF game, one of the last games that Midway ever made, Global Force Wrestling. You know, it's an interesting list. The TNA game did a thing where they had an original character in the game named Suicide. And then they did this thing where Suicide, yes, Ring Ka King. Let's spend another hour talking about Ring Ka King, which is fun to say. But so they created this character Suicide that appeared in the game, and then they had Suicide appear in actual TNA, and he was under under a mask. He was wearing a mask, so they could get away with a bunch. I think Kazarian played Suicide at first, and then a few other people did it over the years. They won like marketing awards for that. That is like an award-winning thing they did because of how interesting of an integration that was, where it's like, oh, this video game character suddenly started appearing on the television show and all of that sort of stuff, right? And it's neat. It was a neat thing they did. Unfortunately, they did it in TNA, so no one ever really saw it. But that TNA wrestling game that Midway made had a couple of ideas in it. It was not a great game, but they tried some stuff. And I think that's maybe some of the most important things a wrestling game can do, even to this day, is fucking try some stuff, man. Wrestling games are so fucking bad and so fucking boring. Like, try something to make it actually fun for once. Can we? We have a fun wrestling game? For a change, that'd be nice. Jarrett added, resurrecting Acclaim is an opportunity to impart the same degree of passion and love to a new generation, and I'm excited to be involved. So, good quote from Double J here. And all of that. But I think maybe kind of overstating in classic wrestler form. I would expect nothing less from a true worker to perhaps overstate his involvement in some of these things over the years. Good on him. Good on him. That carny motherfucker. So we'll see what they do, I guess. It's a strange, it's just a very strange concept here. The VentureBeat article does spend a little bit of time, as a secondary focus, the company will seek out older IP, including older Acclaim game properties, and try to revitalize them for a new generation. For the new Acclaim to get its hands on the old properties, that's probably going to take a lot of money. The quote here is, we're taking a look at rebooting games. Some of the IP is not going to be available. Yep. That sounds like the right answer to that question. Well, yeah, we'll take a look. I don't know. If we can get some of this old IP, then yeah. But some of it's, we're obviously not going to be able to get it. They say that they may publish 3 to 4 games per year as they get up to speed, but they're not going to pump things out. They'll focus on original IP. In any given time period, they'll focus on an original IP and an established IP. So we'll see. We'll see what that. I don't know. I don't know what that. Best of luck. Best of luck to everyone. Alex Joseph always. I have not talked to Alex Joseph in a very, very long time, but he always was a solid guy back in his PR days, and he's obviously gone on to do much, much more in the years since. So awesome. And we'll see what they do. It's just such a, but it is just kind of one of those things that, like, if you really think about it, if you don't think about it, then awesome. Then you'll see the Acclaim logo and go, oh, hell yeah, Acclaim. But if you actually dig into it and what the legacy is and what IP would probably be available to them, and what Acclaim made that wasn't licensed, and like all of that, you go like, yeah, what do you actually do? It's a logo. You got a logo to put on a package, and maybe that will, and you're going to be putting that on. Well, they probably won't even be packages; they'll be Steam pages. And what do you do? Are you kind of hope that, like, people see it and they're like, oh, I used to play a bunch of those games, and that, like, that's the only a move that really works with people who have fallen off of games and don't stay current and don't think about it, and they go like, oh, hell yeah, Acclaim, I remember, yeah, these guys from back in the day. Whatever this is, I'm buying it because I had such a good time with South Park Rally. I don't know, insert game name here. I had such a good time with Bart versus the World and Bart versus the Space Mutants that I've definitely got to purchase the next game from Acclaim. That's not something that a human being has ever said out loud. So yeah, it's a very, I don't know. What do you get? What do you get with that name? What kind of brand positivity do you get with that name that you wouldn't get by just starting something new? I mean, whatever. You get people talking. Like, one of the hardest things to do in this business at all is get people talking about a new thing. So, so they've got that. They've got that on their side, which, a lot of, if you just, any other indie publisher starting up does not have that talking point. But I just don't know that it's a positive talking point. That's the thing, right? It's a weird one. We'll see what they do with it. Let's take our last break and we'll come back and we'll talk about another brand new video game from your friend Tony Hawk. We'll be right back. It's time to save money. Rocket Money can help. Rocket Money can make things happen for you that you don't have time to do. That's what makes it different from a lot of the other financial services and things out there. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so that you can grow your savings. So, for example, you log in, you connect up your financial accounts. That means your credit card, bank accounts, like, it has a standard secure login process for all of this stuff to get it all connected up. You connect up your PayPal account, like all that sort of stuff. So, so that it gets a sense of, hey, what's in, what's out? Where's the money coming in from? Where is it going out to? What's happening? It'll categorize it for you so you can see things like, that's a lot of money on, food delivered to your home, for example. This might be something you look at and go, oh, geez, I should probably make a change there. But they will also suggest changes for you if they see bills that are a little out of whack. If they look at a thing and go like, hey, I think we can save you some money here. You can be like, okay. And they will go out and negotiate it for you. They took a look at my phone bill. They said, hey, I think you can do better than this. And I said, okay, application. You go off and do that. And now they're going to go off and handle negotiations and see what they can get done. Same with, let's say a satellite radio service that goes up in price every year. Not only will it let you know, like, hey, the price went up again this year, it will also say, yeah, hey, you want to cancel this? What do you want? You want us to go out and negotiate on your behalf to try to, save you some money? So, money and time. Sometimes these services make it hard for you to cancel. You got to deal with a phone tree of people, and they're going to ask you questions. What are they going to ask you? They're going to ask you things like, well, I know you just told me that your new internet is significantly faster than what we've been selling you, but what if I took $40 off the price and you could get this, you could get another year of this bad internet? And you're like, well, thank you, but I understand that, but I don't. No, you don't have time for that. You don't have 45 minutes to sit on the phone and sit on hold. Rocket Money does. Get them to do it. That's what they're there for. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/JeffG today. That's rocketmoney.com/JeffG. Check it out. It's rocketmoney.com/JeffG. They're going to make a new Tony Hawk game. Breaking news. Breaking news at this hour. They're going to make a new Tony Hawk game. They're going to re-release, they're going to take 2 old Tony Hawk games, they're going to smash them together into one game, and they're going to put it back out there. It's official. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4 has been announced for a July 11th release. And they have put out a trailer, and they have put out some screenshots, and they have put out a few details about the game and how it will be sold. If you pre-order, they will give you access to a demo that will come out in June that will have the Foundry level in it. And players who pre-order the game will gain instant access to the in-game wireframe Tony shader at launch, giving a wild new look to the legendary skater. They're doing the thing where if you pre-order it, you will get it 3 days early. They're calling, which is not early. That is just the lot. They're saying it's out July 11th, but really it'll be out more like the 8th or something. There's a digital deluxe edition that will come with the Doom Slayer and a Revenant from Doom, along with some Doom-inspired skate decks and hoodies and shit to put on your created skater. And then they're going to, for $130, they will sell you a collector's edition that will come with a physical copy of the game and a voucher for all of the digital deluxe edition benefits, and also a skateboard deck, I should say. No trucks, no wheels. It will have a classic Tony Hawk logo on it and a printed autograph, not an actual autograph. Deck only, it says, deck only. Trucks, wheels, grip tapes, and other skateboard components not included. That's kind of the long and short of it. There's not a lot of other details here, but there is one sentence. I think this is where this is coming from. I don't know that if there's been any kind of further discussion about this bullet point here. But people have been latching onto this. I think this is where this is coming from, unless there's more coverage out there that I just haven't seen. It says here, the parks from THPS 3 and THPS 4 have been authentically remade in jaw-dropping 4K resolution with streamlined goals in a 2-minute format. I don't know exactly what that means in the context of Tony Hawk 3, which was already a game that operated in the 2-minute format. But what that sounds like to me is that they are taking the gameplay of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, which was originally not a game that happened in the 2-minute format, and they are cramming it into a kind of classic mode configuration. How Tony Hawk 4 worked originally is the levels were larger. It was not, people say it's an open world game. It's not an open world game. The levels were larger. There were still load times between the levels. It wasn't just one big contiguous skate world. They would get there years later. But the levels were significantly larger, and you dropped into them with no timer. And so you would walk up to, it was like a GTA thing. You would basically like skate up to a person who had a fucking icon over their head or whatever. And then you would talk to them and they would say, "Can you do this?" And then that would start a timer. And it wasn't always 2 minutes. It was whatever the timer was that was appropriate for the goal they were asking you to do. Can you knock these kegs down? Can you knock down 5 of these kegs in 40 seconds or 10 seconds or whatever it is? Like, or hey, can you collect the skate letters you've got, or collect these combo letters, you've got 20 seconds to do it because they're all right here. So that sounds different. Without more footage, without more details, it's kind of hard to know if that's exactly what they're doing. But that sentence certainly makes it sound like they are going to like retrofit Tony Hawk 4 into the classic format. Which is weird, but I wonder like if it's just a situation of just like, well, it's much faster for us to develop it this way because all of the other games we've remade have been like this, and so this is already built. If you want us to build in this kind of no run timer start stop thing the way the game originally was, it's going to take an extra 6 months, or it's going to do this, or I don't know what I don't know what the situation is there. So we'll have to kind of wait for kind of further detail there. They also say new parks, including Water Park with its grindable slides and a drained out lazy river that's perfect for vert trick combos. So it sounds like they are going to add new levels to this as well. New Game Plus, retain the stats you earned in your first playthrough and perfect your skills across every park in the game. I think they patched that stuff into Tony Hawk 1 and 2, I believe. Iron Galaxy is doing this. I guess they did the PC version of 1 and 2, which is a hell of a version of that game. And so, yeah, cross-platform multiplayer, career mode, enhanced creation tools, New Game Plus, and more. See if there's anything. And just let me skim this here. Yeah, it seems like they're separating the two games into two separate tours, the same way that they did in 1 and 2. Single sessions, speed runs, and free skate. So, like considering that you will eventually kind of just play these levels in a multiplayer mode or what have you, maybe the change to like if they are in fact changing the size and structure of the career mode in 4, if the levels are still in there and they're still the same size, if they're not chopping the levels up into smaller bits, which would be weird, then maybe that doesn't matter as much as it initially seems like. It is weird if that is the change they're making. Streamline goals in a 2-minute format. But also, I've always said 4 is really clunky structurally. They had to do something after 3. They had to figure out ways to change it up and make it larger, and they did. But it wasn't until Thug 1 came out that they really felt like they got good at doing that type of game, that larger type of game. So I'm not necessarily opposed to Tony Hawk 4 going through this change, but at the same time, It's a very funny sentence to use the word authentically in. If it's also the sentence that you're saying that you have inauthentically recreated this career mode, I guess. But again, this is like we're reading one sentence in this and constructing an entire narrative out of it. So we'll have to see if that's the case. I don't know. That's weird. But that's always been the kind of the weird thing about 4 anyway. So I guess I am not so devoted to Tony Hawk 4 that I am like that sounds like a deal breaker either way, I guess. So we'll see what they end up doing with it. We'll see what we'll see. I don't know. Sounds like, music new and old. So, sort of like the remake of 1 and 2, which had a lot of the music from those games, but not all of the music from those games. And they put in some new tracks as well. I bet they do exactly that. I bet you would look at that first game for most things and go, what are they going to do? They're going to do this. This is what they're going to do. It also seems like, I'm going to click this pre-order now button and see what they say about it because I am curious. I wonder if they are, so they have pre-orders open for digital versions of the game. And it looks like it's coming everywhere but the Epic Store, which is funny because it was exclusively on the Epic Store for like a year when it first came to PC. It is Xbox PC. It is Xbox Windows, the Windows Store, Battle.net, PlayStation, Steam, and Switch. It will be available on Game Pass. And it is also coming like that Xbox and PC also includes PS4 and Xbox One. So that is at least one Xbox One game that is coming out in 2025. If we haven't seen one already, we probably have, and I'm just not aware of it. But yeah, I don't know. Cool. Like, good. They should do this. I'm glad that this is happening at all. For something that seemed like it wasn't going to happen, it's good that this is happening. We'll see what happens with Tony Hawk 4 and the career mode there and what they end up doing to it. But honestly, I think you could that could do with some change. And yes, as Latin Bray says, Switch 2 launch title, believe. Yeah, probably. Right? I mean, why wouldn't it be? At that point, if it's out in July, if we start to try to walk things out and say, oh, well, maybe Switch 2 comes out in June or whatever. Yeah, sure. They should do that. They should put that out on Switch 2. I bet they will. But it'll be about a month before we get to hear about that. So we'll see. Rockstar has acquired a studio in Australia. Video Games Deluxe, based out of Sydney, will be renamed to Rockstar Australia, according to VideoGamesChronicle.com. This is Brendan McNamara's studio, who was the director of L.A. Noire before Team Bondi went away and all of that stuff. And then he went and formed a new studio. Jennifer Colby of Rockstar said, after working together closely over many years, we're excited to have Video Games Deluxe join the team as Rockstar Australia. And Brendan McNamara says, it's been an honor to work closely with Rockstar Games this past decade. We are thrilled to be a part of Rockstar Games and to continue our efforts to make the best games possible. I believe they touched some of the current gen GTA 5 stuff. I think that Video Games Deluxe maybe did some stuff there, if I'm not mistaken. More recently, it's not just like they made L.A. Noire, then started a new studio and went away. But yeah, seems like that's going to happen. Today is the day for a Monster Hunter Wilds patch that will fix some story progression bugs. I guess there was a problem unlocking the ability to make food And if that didn't unlock, then there was a quest you could not complete and you would get stuck. They're patching that today. They have said, hey, we're working on the PC version. Like, we're aware that the PC version is not operating the way that it should. And they've given a list of things that they want to try to fix. But yeah, I don't know. That game just, it still looks, it's not like a desert haze. Like, I don't want people to think that I'm just like, oh, I don't like that it looks like a hazy desert because it's set in a hazy desert. It's that it looks like a weird, blurry mess. And it's not a TAA thing. I saw some people quick go like, well, that's a TAA fucked up another game. Like, nah. I turned all that off. It still looks bad. Still looks weird. Still looks weird. Want to buy a PlayStation VR2? No, you don't. But what if it was cheaper? Starting this month, the PlayStation VR2 is getting a price cut down to $400, which is cheaper. But that's still a lot of money. If you want the bundle, they still have these available. I can't believe that these didn't sell out, but the limited bundle of PlayStation VR 2 along with Horizon Call of the Mountain is also available. And you can get that for that's more money. What is, hang on. The story I have in front of me doesn't have the does not have the full pricing. Okay, so yes, $399.99 for the base model, and same price, $399 for the version that comes with Horizon Call of the Mountain. Please buy these. Please get these out of our warehouse. We're not making any more of them, so act now. Supplies are limited, I guess. The PlayStation blog mentions in its article that, like, this is a funny sentence. This is legit. Who wrote this? Whose name is on this? Isabel Tomatis, VP of Global Marketing. It's never been a better time to jump into the action with PSVR 2. I guess, yeah, at this new price, that's true. It's there's never been a better time to buy a PSVR 2. And the next sentence, using the PSVR 2 PC adapter, players will also have access to browse, buy, and play thousands of virtual reality games on Steam. Title release dates and regional availability may vary. It doesn't come with that. I don't think, like, nothing in here. Yeah, in the base model comes with the headset, the controllers, and stereo headphones. And then the Call of the Mountain bundle comes with all of that same stuff and a download code for Horizon Call of the Mountains, which is very pretty, I will say. Not much of a game, but it looks nice. So yeah, that's it does not include the PC adapter, which I suppose makes sense. You can buy that still. Can you buy that still? Where? That thing, the little breakout box they're selling for this PC adapter thing is okay. Direct. I am now looking at the PlayStation Direct where they sell stuff. I can get a shiny blue console cover for a slim PS5. I don't think they've made any covers for the Pro yet. Maybe I'm wrong. Accessories, PSVR 2. Nope, that's just the PSVR 2. There we go. Okay, they do have it. They do have the PC adapter for the PSVR2 in stock. It is $60, so that's if you were looking to get a PC headset, you would have to tack another $60 onto this price to do it. And then that comes with a bunch of caveats as well, because the little breakout box, not only do you plug the headset into it, but you have to plug that into a display port, and you need a supported Bluetooth adapter for the controllers. And on top of that, certain PSVR2 features like haptic feedback and eye tracking are not available when it's hooked up to a PC. And so you're getting a reduced version of the PSVR2 feature set, which, to be fair, most PC headsets you're going to buy don't do that stuff either. But don't look at this feature set and go, oh, that'd be cool to use on a PC. It is a nice, lightweight, comfortable headset with good image quality, good lenses, whatever, you want to say about it, like good resolution, all of that. Like, it is very capable of being a nice looking headset. But for that price, for $400, how much is it? Again, as long as assuming you are willing to give money to the Facebook Corporation, which if you are not, I say, okay, yeah, I get it. A Quest 3 is, like $500. So, you can spend $460 for a PSVR 2 that you can hook up to your PC and have to jump through a bunch of hoops. Or you could get a Quest 3, which can hook up wirelessly to your PC, or wired if you so desire, and also has the ability to run some of its own games internally. So, the pricing on this still seems a little weird to me, because it's not like the PSVR 2 is being well supported on the PlayStation. That's not to say that there are 0 games coming for PSVR 2. I think there is, in fact, one. But it's not exactly a well-supported peripheral. That said, the entire VR ecosystem, you could kind of say the same thing about. It's not like VR is some amazing thing on PC. It's not like VR is even some amazing thing on the Quest Store, which seems to be the most mass market version of VR these days. So yeah, I don't know. It's a shame about the eye tracking and all that sort of stuff. Like, if they had been able to enable all of that stuff and developers were able to target that and use it specifically, if you were using that headset on a PC, I think that would be rad. The controllers feel nice. Like, it's a nice looking controller. It's a nice feeling controller, a nice feeling headset, all that stuff. But this is still, I think, a little tough to recommend. A little tough to recommend, even at these lower prices. $400 is still a lot of money for a dead market. I mean, it's not like that's only a little harsh. That's only slightly harsh. PlayStation Blog put up something about Tony Hawk as well. I'm just going to very quickly skim this and see if it says anything, if there's any other sentences about, same sentence. Skate the original parks from 3 and 4, remade in 4K, given streamlined goals in the 2-minute format, along with some new parks. So, nothing really, no new details there. Cool. Is that okay? I want to know that now. I'm actually curious. I'm going to load up Xbox Wire. Okay, they have a Tony Hawk article as well. Let's look and see if it says anything here. Very interesting to see all the words like Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 5 right here on Xbox Wire. So their article doesn't really seem to mention anything about Tony Hawk 4 being different, but the text on their pre-order, like the like pre-order like page, the copy that they have for the game here is all that same stuff. Hit him with some drip in the expanded Create-A-Skater and Create-A-Park modes. Yes, I will hit them with some drip, son. Please allow me to hit them with some drip. Yes. They inserted the word epic into the pre-order text, which is funny. Drop in the new parks or tear it up across the timeless parks from both Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, authentically remade in jaw-dropping 4K resolution, with streamlined goals and the epic 2-minute format. They inserted the word epic into it. Now that's epic. Some details about the Twisted Metal game that has long since been canceled showed up on someone's resume. This is, again, according to videogameschronicle.com, that someone who worked at Firesprite, working on something known as Project Copper, which is was the code name for Twisted Metal. A couple of screenshots, a couple of blurry screenshots, because it's all still under NDA. But the game was described as having third-person shooter mechanics wrapped with third-person vehicle combat, with the objective of being the last one standing. Which, like, man. I don't think that there's a great way to bring back Twisted Metal, but the idea of bringing it back as a battle royale with vehicles in it, but you can also just run around as a dude, something about that seems just wrong, like just conceptually like wrong. But I don't know, like, yeah, people seem to like the Twisted Metal TV series, and my understanding is that they are not always in cars in that as well. So I suppose that maybe doing something else there with it is maybe it's due. But man, yeah, I'm trying to think, like, what do you do faced with the idea of bringing back Twisted Metal? How do you do it? Like, okay, yeah, do it as a battle royale with cars in it, and make it so the cars can shoot, I guess, is probably how you would do that. What was that? There was a car focused battle royale that was out there for a little while. Was that wasn't just a mode in DayZ? No, what was the H1Z1, right? Yeah, they did a vehicle thing for a little bit there, and it was better than you would think, but also not great. So I don't know. There's probably a way to pull this off and that could have been exciting, but I don't know. That doesn't sound like a great way to go with Twisted Metal, but I am of the mind that there is fucking no way to actually make a new Twisted Metal game that people would be excited about, because Twisted Metal was one of those games that came along at a very specific time and worked with very specific controllers in the pre-analog days. Up into the early analog days, I suppose. But like, mobility in games changed, the expectations of players as analog controllers continued to develop and control schemes continued to evolve, blah, blah, blah. The idea of car combat just kind of eventually turns sour on you, where you're like, oh yeah, I can really only fire forward or behind me because I'm trying to drive a car. It's hard to aim and drive a car, so these weapons so now I'm doing a 3-point turn just to try and line up a shot on a moving target that is driving sideways, and so how am I supposed to do this? And so I guess in game you give people a cone, like a firing cone, and you say, okay, as long as they're on your screen, it's going to aim in this cone. It's a very Car Wars kind of thing to do, I suppose. and maybe do it that way. But then it's just like anytime there's an enemy on the screen, hold down the button and it'll aim at him, which is not great either. And or you make it, or you force it to be multiplayer, and you have a lucky and wild situation, and you'll let one player drive and one player shoot, which you could do, but then you're not doing solos, and you're kind of running into issues there as well. Interesting to hear some details about that after all this time, but like that, reading that article made me go like, yeah, they were right to cancel whatever that was. Terminator 2. Speaking of Acclaim, speaking of games that Acclaim published, there have been a lot of questionable games with the Terminator involved in them. But a new one was announced. Terminator 2D, No Fate, was announced. You should watch this trailer. This is a trailer you should go out of your way to see, because if nothing else, it's a really neat looking game. It's coming from Bitmap Bureau, who did Xenocrisis, among other things. They have some pretty good chops in the new old game space, I would say. And they are making a game based on Terminator 2. They are trying to recreate moments from the movie, as well as, creating moments that would work well in a game. It's not just going to be one scene after another. But the trailer sure is full of scenes from Terminator 2 remade as a 2D shooting game, or perhaps a 2D driving away from a big rig game, or what have you. It's a neat looking thing. Because they're basically recreating a fair amount of Terminator 2, but in pixel art, which is, I don't know, it's got a really cool look to it, if nothing else. They're saying it'll have multiple endings, according to Eurogamer. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of interesting. They will have games set in the future, so you will have some adult John Connor in there, as well as some kind of 90s era stuff. You will be able to play as Sarah Connor in the game as well, and yeah, mostly that game's out September 5th on PS5, PS4. Both flavors of all flavors of modern Xbox, including the Xbox One, the Switch, and PC on September 5th. Go look at that trailer if you haven't seen it already. Go check out the Terminator 2D No Fate trailer. It's cool. And hopefully the game is good. I don't know. Like there are weird Terminator games. Like, remember that game for Terminator 1 that they made, 16-bit era? It was just like, it's just weird. It's weird that the best Terminator games are, maybe it's not that weird, but it is weird that one of the best Terminator games is a light gun game, and that the other good Terminator game is a pinball machine. And there haven't really always been. Yeah, Terminator for DOS was an interesting game. Not necessarily a good one, but like a game that had some ideas, for sure. But like the Terminator franchise has not always been well represented. Yeah, interesting Bethesda game. The franchise has not always been well represented in video game form. I might say that the films have not always been very good at representing themselves over the years. But enough about Terminator 3. That pinball machine, that Terminator 2 pinball machine, is fantastic. One of the greatest pinball machines of all time, for sure. But at the same time, yeah, I don't know. There's just that's just been one of those things that, like there was a lot of bum ass licensed games for the years, over the years. Acclaim was responsible for some of them. There was that Terminator game that came out a few years ago that was better than you would think it would be. like, it was cool. It wasn't like an amazing game, but like, what was it called? Was it Terminator Resistance? Is that the... I want to say it's, yes, Terminator Resistance. That game was okay. That game fell into the, like, better than it had any right to be camp, almost. Of like, man, you made a good Terminator game? Weird. But like, it wasn't, you know, I don't know. It was not the deepest, grandest experience of all. Teon made it. And they, unsurprisingly, they also made that RoboCop game that, is in some way like that RoboCop game is a better realized you know, like insofar as like they're remaking a licensed property, a licensed movie, kind of similar vibe, similar era. RoboCop Rogue City is like fucking awesome for what it is. Like, it's small in some ways. You go like, oh yeah, look at you guys doing your thing. But when it hits very hard. That RoboCop game is cool as hell. Terminator Resistance, similar, but not always as successful. Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, there's a big PSN sale happening right now. Teflon Billy says that it is currently under $10 on PSN, but Terminator Resistance is currently $40 on Steam. And then there's a DLC that's $15 as well that people seem to like. It seemed like if you played that Terminator game and wanted more of it, they gave you more of it, and that apparently that bit was real good. So, yeah. Terminator, man. I every so often I think about actually going and watching all of the other Terminator stuff that came out after Terminator 2. I saw Terminator 3 at one point, and it was not good. But like, what there was a thing pretty recently. Was there an anime? Did they make an anime? Is that what Dark Fate is? I heard that was all right. Yeah, Terminator 0, right? That was last year. I heard that was okay. But yeah, I don't know, man. What a fucking weird... Like, you go back and you watch The Terminator. It is such a fucking amazing movie for like the time and all of that stuff. Like, everything about that movie is fucking perfect. And then like Terminator 2 is just such a... It's like a roller coaster ride. It's like here's some cotton candy kid, go and watch the Terminator, give his thumbs up, and he's a funny guy now. And like, it's a good movie. It's still a really good movie, but the vibe of it is so different. It's crazy. It's crazy how it is. But like Terminator, I don't know, man. Terminator 1's fucking amazing. So it's hard to follow up anyway, but like I don't know. It's weird because it's not like they made it PG or anything, but it just feels like such a weird kid friendly. It's just like, I don't know. Look at this little kid. He's got his own Terminator. And it's just such a strange movie to make on the heels of, I mean, not that they made it like immediately afterwards, but as a sequel to The Terminator, Terminator 2 is a fucking weird thing. As the movie that led to Terminator 3, Terminator 2 makes perfect sense. And then in Terminator 3, they're like, oh, we have no idea what we're doing anymore. Oh, God. And they fucking fucked it all up. But yeah, man, Terminator 2 is just such a weird thing after the fact. It's just such a strange movie. That's going to do it for news. Terminator, Tony Hawk, and Jeff Jarrett, the harbingers of the apocalypse, are upon us. I don't know what the fuck's going on anymore. Very strange week for news. Let's get into some emails. Podcast@guard.bike is the email address for you to send in emails to me, and I will take a look at them. Harris wrote in, taking time off his busy Metal Gear streaming schedule, wrote in to say, the Wikipedia page for We Fit You classifies the game as being part of the exergaming genre. I have never heard this before. Does the genre dick recognize the term exergaming, and have there ever been any exergames you've enjoyed? Yes, exercise games, exergaming is probably more of a marketing term than a proper genre, but I don't know, like fitness, I would probably go with calling it a fitness game or something to that effect, and instead of exergaming, because exergaming just has the vibe of a more of a marketing term. Before this, I mean, I'm trying to think like games that, before there was a Wii Fit balance board to make this happen, or the Kinect, or any of the other sort of devices that were, doing more body tracking. VR has certainly been used for a lot of fitness related pieces of software. You could make the argument that Beat Saber is an exergaming game if you wanted to. I wouldn't listen to you, but you could tell someone that. Yes, the Power Pad. But there were a lot of just things that were controllers that were designed to turn every game into something you could exercise with, like the Joy board that you would stand on and lean to move your, it was like a joystick that you stood on to move. It was dumb. There was a bike. There was an exercise bike that came out with, I guess, Atari 2600 support. But I don't know if this ever came out. I remember I had the first video game magazine I ever bought had a picture of this bike in it. And I don't know if it ever actually shipped or not. I should look it up. But it was like something, because this was like around the time of the Atari crash. And so it's like, it would be very easy for them to say, oh yeah, we're going to do this. And then it never came out. But the idea of it was that pedaling the bike was just pressing the fire button. And so the faster you pedaled, the faster it would push the button, like a turbo controller or something. And so obviously, like, only something you would use in a subset of games where you would want to shoot a lot, right? It's not something you would still hold the joystick and you would, use that part normally. I think there was a joystick maybe built into the bike. I forget what it was, but it was basically like something that you would plug the controller into and then plug into the Atari, and then as you pedaled, it would go fast or whatever. Okay, looks like people in the Discord are posting pictures of the bike. I guess it never shipped. Yeah, it looks like this wasn't Atari's though. This is the bike people are linking to was made by Atari, and that's not the thing I'm talking about. Was like a weird, because you have to remember, like in the late Atari days when the Atari 2600 got very, very popular. Everyone who could make something for it tried to, and it's why the video game industry fell apart, is because none of it was any good. And so you had a lot of people out there with no product knowledge making a bunch of garbage and bullshit. And this was such a device. It was not Atari's bike. It was not something that they were making themselves. It was like, here's a thing that pushes the fire button fast as you pedal the bike, and this random company is making it. So it wasn't quite the same thing as this. The Puffer is what is apparently called. That's okay. I don't want to interrogate that too deeply, but okay. So yeah, there have been a handful of different devices over the years that have been like third-party controllers or individual games or whatever that have kind of come and gone. But exergaming is such a weird, wide thing. You could try to make the argument that DDR is an exercise game. You you could, there are a lot of things over the years that you kind of pre-Wii U, pre-Kinect, pre-VR that you could say fall into that category. But yeah, exergaming, like, sure, you could say that there is a subgenre of game that is exercise based. I would just say a lot of those games are just fucking games that work with a weird controller, and so they aren't always, you wouldn't get into games that were, I think, were a little more dedicated until way later, until we would end up with like some of the Kinect games that were trying to do fitness stuff. And the Wii U balance board, and of course the Ring Fit. Ring Fit, I think, is actually is Ring Fit the most successful? I don't necessarily mean from a sales standpoint, but from a fitness standpoint, in terms of making a device and making a thing that you're saying this is for exercise, and then it doing it. Because the VR stuff is a byproduct, right? Like you could say Beat Saber is, and there've been plenty of fitness focused products for VR, but they're not necessarily designed for you to use with additional devices. It's just like, hey, here's a fitness game that you do the thing you always do in VR, but do it faster and more. But Ring Fit feels like it is very much an actual thing, and an actual like effective thing on top of that. So it's telling, perhaps, then, that I have a sealed Ring Fit in this closet behind me is a sealed copy of Ring Fit that I never got around to opening. I wanted to, I meant to, I just never really got around to it. There were pizzas to eat, you understand. Randy in Maine writes in, says, I don't know how much socializing you do with normal people. Fair. That's fair. But what do you tell them when they ask you what you do for work? Are you a YouTuber? Do you run a website? Are you a games journalist? Just curious. I have a difficult to explain but otherwise extremely normal spreadsheet job, so I struggle with this too. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's always been weird, and it's weirder now than it was. When you're working for a larger company, it's a lot easier to say like, oh yeah, I work on a website. We do this, work on this stuff and whatever. And so, yeah, it's because I think there's a certain connotation, that comes with the like YouTuber streamer thing, that is always a little like, people don't look at you like you're a solid citizen when you tell them that. And so that's yeah, but like usually I think these days I just say I cover video games. I've been doing it for a long time. And it's it's like a podcast. I usually say like, I do like podcasts, and I've been covering video games for like 30 years. That's usually how I describe it these days. And because the other stuff is like, what does that even mean? The other stuff is like, so like it can be so esoteric, or like people think they know, but they have no idea. About this life or whatever. But yeah, I think, like when people hear the idea of like YouTube or Twitch or whatever as like, that's what I do. I think there's kind of a weird, like I think people don't necessarily understand that. And a lot of people that do, or do have some understanding of it, are like, what? You do what? And so, yeah, I don't know. Like it's, yeah, I think I usually just kind of like, oh yeah, I do, which I don't think saying I do podcasts is like a fucking great thing to do either, because there are a billion podcasts now and a lot of them are fucking terrible. Like it's, like that's become the podcaster has become the butt of a joke, kind of for a reason. But I don't know, man. I've been dedicated to it for so long. Like I've been such a big believer in podcasts for about 20 years now. And And yeah, it's a shame that I think that like the concept of podcasting has been kind of run through the mud a little bit. Like it has that vibe of like anyone can start one, and they're like anyone, and everyone does, and everyone fucking does. So yeah, there's definitely kind of a connotation to that as well. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's weird, and it's weirder. You know, I'm the Pat McAfee of video games. Sure. When I get this new set and I can get some guys to kind of sit somewhere near me and just like laugh or whatever, then yes, we'll recreate the Pat McAfee experience. Jesus Christ. His show and him aside, I actually think his setup is fine. Yes, we'll get some producers in here to just like, they'll just be off camera laughing like, haha, yeah, we need a Gary Delabate equivalent. Someone that I can just say hey now to from time to time, really. Chase from Cleveland writes in and says, I have seen a decent amount of talk from analysts suggesting that a large GTA 6 launch would bolster confidence in investment in the video game industry. I know it sounds crazy to think this, but is GTA's success guaranteed? GTA releases used to be massive events, but younger audiences seemingly are playing GTA Online. So what is GTA 6? Is it a narrative action game with a campaign first, or will it be more online focused because that is where the audience for those games went? If GTA 6 is just another traditional game, will people care? I know we will care because we're old and we're still buying all the big AAA releases. I'm not sure that the swaths of people playing the same 10 games for the last decade will care. Sure. Yeah, that's a valid, I mean, is GTA's success guaranteed? I would say up to a certain point in terms of launch day success and launch day sales. I think that they will have a very big launch. They will have a very big first week. They will probably have a very big first month. And then word of mouth will kick in. Everyone thought that Red Dead and Red Dead Redemption 2 did not sell. But the long-term process, the long-term viability of Red Dead did not materialize. Because they thought, oh, we're gonna have another GTA Online on our hands, or even if they didn't think that, I think analysts did. Maybe they were a little more realistic internally about their expectations for it. But it seems like the people that were expecting Red Dead to be more were also disappointed, and so it just never really got off the ground to begin with, and so they never really invested in it. GTA Online, I would say, had similar problems, but GTA Online didn't exist, so they just stuck with it. When Red Dead floundered online, they said, oh, we should just keep working on GTA Online because why would we do this? And so as an online, like, cash cow, billions of dollars, whatever, Red Dead 2 was not the game that they were probably hoping it could be. That said, it's a different scenario. But yes, now you have a situation where GTA 6 launches into a world where GTA Online exists and has been getting updates for years and years and years, and is still. I just got a press release fucking today about GTA Online. GTA Online, Oscar Guzman flies again, now available. That is today's update. Partnering with the notorious smuggler Oscar Guzman and taking down the private military Eberhard Munitions. It's very funny for that to be like a GTA mission. More arms trafficking missions. You got to take down this notorious smuggler. It's like, I don't know, man. I thought we were just going around to the burger joint around the corner with the funny name, and then we were going to go steal a car and then shoot cops. Okay, no, we're flying planes and arms smugglers, and okay, sure. GTA is weird, man. GTA is weird. It always was. The update for PC also just came out today. The update that brings the PC version of GTA Online in line with the PS5 and Xbox Series X versions of the game. That is also available today, by the way. But where were we? GTA 6. What happens? That's a good question. Success. What does success look like for Grand Theft Auto at this point? It's not boxed copy sales. Like that is, they can certainly have a successful launch and all of that stuff, but it's about, is this going to be another 10-year game for them or more? It's this, I guess actually it's kind of a lot more, right? When did GTA 5 come out? Jesus Christ. 2013. So 12 years. 12 years. 12 years. And it's been getting just about 12 years of updates to that online mode. You know, it didn't, the online stuff wasn't there right at launch, but yeah, it's been right about there. It'll end up being, you know, like, yeah, if it fails, yes, it'll be a weird thing where it'll be like a massive launch that then it's not sticky enough. It doesn't retain players as well as it needs to. The worst case scenario is that it launches, players don't stick around, but then also it somehow ruins the player base for existing GTA Online. And so they fuck up both like the cash cow and the new thing. That's the worst case scenario. But do they end up in a Payday 3 situation, right? If this thing launches and the online mode is not what people want and people end up sticking with old GTA Online, what do? What do they do? Now, keep in mind, we don't really know that much about what the online part of GTA 6 is going to consist of. It's entirely possible that they may say, oh, it's the thing we're doing is actually built on existing GTA Online, and so we're doing this and we're making this change. I think that would be weird, and they probably won't do that because GTA 6 will undergo so many enhancements and graphical changes and everything else that, you know, it would be hard to cram both GTAs into one online world. But I do think it is very possible for a new GTA Online to not work out the way that this previous one did. For a lot of the reasons we were talking about with like Apex and the sequel to Apex versus patches for Apex 1, or what they did with Overwatch, or what they, the Payday stuff. And there are so many scenarios where, Among Us 2, not existing. And how do you do all of that stuff? And are you going to attract new players? Like the people playing GTA Online now, how many of them want another baseline GTA Online experience? And how many of them want an RP server? How many of them want to watch streamers be big RP players, and then they want to go on RP servers themselves, which is why Rockstar bought some of those RP developers along the way, because they want to be able to make sure that they are addressing that part of their community. I think the thing they're trying to pull off is, I think, very difficult. I think they're going to try to do a very difficult thing, and now they have a lot of resources at their disposal, and I think that they have been very intelligent about how they have handled most of this stuff over the years. And so if anyone is going to find a way to do it, I do think it will be them, but yeah, I don't know. Latin Bray has another fair question. Is the generation into RP aging out of it? Maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't know because I never had any real interest in that aspect, in most aspects of GTA Online, I kind of just don't want to do that. RP or otherwise, the multiplayer aspect of GTA, that online aspect of the game, never felt good enough. Like, there are pockets of it that are really good and really neat, but it's like co-op shit. It's like, let's go do a robbery, let's go do a heist. Like, that stuff was really neat. But you had to do a bunch of shit to get there, and you had to play you had to engage with other humans online, and everyone playing. And every time I played GTA Online, it was like every other player was just fucking out to fuck shit up. Which maybe an RP server would be a better, more chill time by comparison. But it just seems like every time you get in there, it's like the turn one problem in a driving game times a billion. Because it's not everyone crashing into turn one in a racing game. Instead, it's you join the server and then you're just kind of like getting your bearings and trying to figure out what's going on. And then someone drives by and shoots you and blows up your car. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? What do I even do? Why am I even doing this? What do I do to get ahead other than spend real money? Because I don't think I'm going to do that. Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? And then you go and you try to join a multiplayer hopper and you get into a thing and it's like, oh, this is like team deathmatch. That's cool, but it's GTA. And so the controls are kind of shitty. And there are a lot of team deathmatch games I could be playing that aren't this. Why am I doing this? And so, yeah, I don't know. For me, there was always, as much as I enjoyed GTA 5 as a game, when it comes to bringing those concepts online, it always felt like there was something better I could be doing. A different game I could be playing that I would enjoy more. And so, yeah, I don't know. Just the very nature of GTA Online just felt like it just never made much sense to me. Or whatever. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? It makes a whole lot of fucking money. But in terms of just like, what is that thing and what do you do? I don't really know. I don't really have a good answer. I don't really have a good answer for you. But that just seems like a very hard problem. And yeah, I do think that there's a possibility that this thing launches and isn't where it needs to be. But also they, again, will have the resources to make it right. And, that doesn't, money doesn't solve all your problems, but it certainly helps. And so if GTA 6's online stuff does not attract an audience out of the gate and it feels like that the audience wants something different, then I think they will race to supply that as quickly as possible because they've got a whole economy, like they've got a whole damn company propped up off of shark card sales. And if that doesn't work out for them long term, then I don't know what the fuck they do. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Eric from Massachusetts writes in, says, I started playing some Steam Next Fest games and came across the first Berserker Kazan. Sort of a generic Souls-like whatever, but the art style is a gritty, bloody anime cell shading that I actually like in this specific bloody context, and I could see a lot of future games copying it. My question is, besides Borderlands, which games do you think have defined cell shading design in gaming? Also, I feel like the Borderlands 4 trailer's art did absolutely nothing for me, just shiny, up-resed, same old. What do you think? I think of Cell Damage. I think of the fucking dumb car combat game Cell Damage when people talk about cell shading in video games. Because I'm broken. I think about Automodelista, the Capcom driving game, which has an amazing look, but unfortunately is not a very good game to play, at least in the US. They changed the handling in that game for the US version, and it fucked it all up. But even the Japanese version is maybe not as fun, arcadey as you kind of want it to be for how cool it looks. Automodelista is probably still one of the coolest looking games Period. What else from those days? 13, the Ubisoft shooter. That was like David Duchovny's in that, right? Yeah, I don't know. Wind Waker, of course, is a great use of that style. But yeah, I don't know, man. There's Guilty Gear does some of that stuff. Beautiful Joe. But yes, the first game that comes to mind for me when you talk about cell shading in video games is Cell Damage, because that was the first game that I remember anyone ever, and it's right in the name, they called it Cell Damage for a reason. But it was the first time I ever remember anyone really trying to market on the back of the concept of cell shading. Yeah, Jet Set Radio, sure. Yeah, yep, that's definitely, yeah. As for Borderlands 4, the Borderlands 4 stuff, I think the only interesting thing there is that they are focusing on mobility, and I think that if they make it more of a movement-based shooter, that is interesting. If they give you good abilities to work with in terms of how you move and, launching yourself into the air or grappling around or whatever, then I think that there's something potentially cool about that would make the game feel a little more dynamic and fast, as opposed to Borderlands as it has been, which is not necessarily a slow game, but it is not necessarily it's not a big movement game. So I'm curious about that. That is my takeaway from what they've said about Borderlands so far, and what they've shown about it is like, okay, this actually might change the general flow of combat. And if they find a way to write that game in a way that doesn't suck, there's certainly potential there. But like the general tone and concept and look of Borderlands and the enemy characters and everything and the Vault Hunters and everything, I think that stuff has worn so thin over the years that it's hard to get excited for a trailer for Borderlands at this point. So, we'll see once they start letting people play it and what have you. I'm curious to see how that goes. Let's see here. Steve from Australia writes in and says, worms or lemmings? I like lemmings. Make mine lemmings. That is where I'm at. I was never a wormsman. And I am still not much of one. Worms is a cool game, but I played Lemmings a lot more at the time when it was released. And Worms I kind of came to a few years in. It took me a while to meet someone who was like, let's sit down and play Worms. And they were really good at Worms, and I had never played Worms. And I was like, well, this sucks. I'm getting the shit beat out of me. And I don't know. I think Worms is cool, but it's no Lemmings. Let's see. Eric writes in and says, what's a controller that wasn't bad but was doomed by one crucial flaw? Like, for example, how the Dreamcast controller inexplicably lacked a second thumbstick. I would not say that the Dreamcast controller is flawed or that it was doomed by a crucial flaw. It was not an era when a lot of games were doing any kind of dual analog anything. I would say, the chord placement on the Dreamcast controller is way worse than anything about a second stick because of how the games were designed. They weren't designing games that needed a second stick for the most part. And so you just kind of didn't need that. you had a handful of games that, like, when you look at some games nowadays, when you go back to them, especially, and some of the third-party stuff and some of the weirder shit that appeared on the Dreamcast, you look at it and go like, oh, this is clearly something that would have benefited from a second stick. Like Soldier of Fortune, for example. That's a game where you're like, okay, let me hold left on the D-pad and push this to toggle this, and like all the other things that you had to do to you know, that you go like, oh man, if you had 2 more bumpers on this thing, if you had an L1, R1 type of situation, that'd be something. Yeah, but a controller with a crucial flaw, I don't... Rockbuster says the 360 D-pad. I never really had a huge problem with the Xbox 360 D-pad. I might say that the weight of the original 6-axis controller, actually the triggers on the PS3 controller are garbage. That is straight up trash. Those triggers are the worst. The weight of that controller also feels terrible. Like everything about the original PS3 controller, the 6-axis, meaning not the DualShock 3 or whatever, the when they finally got rumble back into the controller. It feels like it's gonna like snap apart in your hands. It's so lightweight. It's such a weird. It feels terrible. But the triggers on the PS3 controller are garbage. Such that shooters that were, you know, coming out on the Xbox 360 and establishing a now very common controller layout would default to the triggers being swapped the opposite way on PlayStation, because those triggers were so fucking terrible to use for anything, that they're like, oh, why don't you just, we're just going to make it so that those triggers throw grenades and shit. It's not going to aim and shoot, because we're going to put aim and shoot on L1 and R1 because those feel like actual buttons and not garbage. I don't like the analog sticks on the Atari 5200 controller. I think they always felt like shit, and the way that games take advantage of them on the 5200 always feel really weird. I think the white and black buttons on the Xbox controller are not great, because they could have just been in line with the other 4 buttons on the face, and that would have been a better, more reasonable placement. And it would have worked better for fighting games, which is always the standard I'm looking at them for. Let's see. I think in retrospect, the squared off edges of the NES controller are not very good, especially with adult hands. It's just a weirdly pointy, non-ergonomic thing coming from an era that no one was thinking about any kind of ergonomics in the first place. So I think the regular NES controller is a little strange. I think it's really hard for me to hold a 3-button Genesis controller in this day and age. I think the 6-button feels great. I think the US Saturn controller is a weird nightmare compared to the Japanese Saturn controller. I would say that the analog stick on the Saturn 3D controller is actually way worse than just about anything. Yeah, the NES Max, conceptually, is top to bottom. Everything about the NES Max is a garbage fire of a controller. That thing is misery in your hands. Adam from the UK writes in and asks, why haven't consoles shifted to a yearly release cycle? Whether or not we see them as worthwhile upgrades, high-value tech products like GPUs and smartphones receive new versions every year, often at a higher price than a console. Why haven't consoles followed suit? If anything, their lifespans are now longer than ever. To be clear, I'm not advocating for a yearly console refresh, but I'm curious about your thoughts on why we haven't even heard rumors of investors pushing for it. This must have come up in boardroom discussions. What do you think is stopping it? Fan backlash? Surely not. The R&D costs. You know, I think that the annualizing a console, I think the upgrades would be extremely minimal year to year, because they are traditionally they're not using cutting edge technology the way that phones and modern GPUs often are. And so you have this situation where they're using older technology that fits a specific price profile and like a specific like power draw, heat dissipation, whatever, for them to put in a console that's not going to be gigantic and overheat. I think that's probably one of the bigger parts of it. I think there's just no need to. I think ultimately, I don't think that games would benefit from it. You wouldn't see dramatic changes on this front, and you would see a massive increase in your R&D costs for making a new console every year. You would have to try to develop that console to be something that you could, as the console manufacturer, very easily remove one part and put in another, not in a user upgradable way, but in a like, hey, this board, this part of the board over here is always going to be our GPU area, and we can rip it out and put in a new one, and all these connectors are standardized in our manufacturing process, so it's, so they don't have to re-engineer the whole fucking thing every time. You would end up spending a lot more on compatibility testing because consumers expect that their games are going to work. That's something that I think Apple has kind of walked away from largely. Like they certainly, and Google as well, but like phones, even though they're annualized, the games get judged by whatever the current SDK is and what the current standards are of the time. But there are plenty of applications that break on older devices or older firmware that the phone manufacturer does not give a single fuck about. With games, especially, games that might be being played for years and years after the fact, there is an expectation that that shit is going to work. And so I think if you are upgrading consoles every year and suddenly like, oh, by the way, this game just randomly doesn't work on the new one, or hey, this game that just came out only works on the new one, you end up with a lot of very confusing messaging points around what's compatible with what. And that's a bad place to be for very little benefit. Classically, the best time to be a console manufacturer is near the end of the generation because you've sold a lot of consoles. Ideally, you're selling them at a profit at this point because you've optimized your manufacturing process in such a way that allows for it. And your install base is so large that you're getting 30% off of every game that sells and you're fucking living good. If you're annually shipping a console, you never get to reach that point and enjoy it as the company financially. So there's really just no good reason to do it. And consumers don't want it. I don't think that they would buy it. They would buy whatever the latest thing is, but those prices can only go so high before you're like, well, no. Like, I'm not going to do this. I think the PS5 Pro is absolutely pushing the boundary on that in terms of like what's acceptable for a modern mainstream console. And I think, as we see those sales fall behind their PS4 Pro counterpart, and we see kind of developer sentiment around the PS5 Pro not exactly being, doesn't seem like there's a lot of dev fervor around the PS5 Pro, let's say. That I think, even though that was not an annual refresh, that was kind of a midpoint refresh, I think even that feels like something that happened a little too soon. I think if you did that, you would see more people moving to PC where they have more control over what they upgrade and when they upgrade it. Within reason, of course. I mean, and I wonder, there was a Japanese survey talking about what the biggest franchises in Japan are, and some of the numbers they saw there were that PC penetration was creeping up a little bit. It's like it's still only like 16 or 17%. It's not like some massive number in Japan. But I wonder, if we're seeing, because we see these massive launches on Steam now. Monster Hunter was the 8th game in Steam history to break 1 million concurrents. And it's like one of the biggest launches in Steam history or whatever. it feels like we're seeing that story happen just a little bit more frequently these days with some of these. And Monster Hunter is the most Japanese ass console ass franchise you could fucking get. And now it is one of the biggest PC games in the world. And so I start to think about, you know, as I was reading that, I started thinking, like, what does this mean? What does this say about people's appetite for consoles going forward? Are we seeing more of the dedicated video gaming audience, meaning the non-casual, non-mainstream, people that really fucking like this shit? And maybe they aren't technically minded, but they really like this shit enough to where they're like, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get technically minded enough to fucking make this a reality because I'm sick of the console rat race. And it sounds like it's pretty good over here on PC. Are we seeing more people punch out of the kind of the Xbox and PlayStation stuff anyway? Not a massive degree. This is not some sky is falling fucking insane bullshit. But is it just that, you know, are we seeing more players come to PC on, you know, to realize their dreams of just like, here's a fucking device and I can upgrade it or not upgrade it. And it's, you know, these games are running across years and years, and the Steam Deck is even stretching out the width of compatible devices or acceptable devices, I guess I should say, in ways that, you know, the console really can't. I mean, obviously at the high end, the PC stuff is fucked. PC stuff is a disaster. Let's not, I mean, you know, I'm not being all fucking rosy about it. Like, you know, all those 5070 reviews hit yesterday or whenever it was, like recently. And I feel like the vast majority of them are people saying, yo, this thing is fucking terrible comparatively for the price. Like, this thing is just straight up like, yo, this is a ripoff at this price compared to the performance you're getting against a 4090 or, you know, cards in the previous generation. So, you know, I don't, you know, there's obviously like weird things happening in the PC space as well, but I do think that there's a much more acceptable low end happening on PC than what you kind of see on console. The Xbox Series S is a really interesting device, and it got, you know, it got gaming through in a very interesting time where a lot of these devices were hard to find and whatever, and that's kind of cool. But, you know, we also still see games shipping on PS4 and Xbox One in some cases. There was a story out of the Call of Duty kind of leak community saying that it is certainly possible that this year's Call of Duty may also appear on last-gen consoles, which is wild at this point. You know, like, when do you know, what's going on? Like, what, you know, like, developers got to make money, so they're going to ship where the people are. And what does it say? What it says is that consoles have not had a significant price cut, is what that says. Is that PlayStation 5s still cost, you know, as much as they always have, and Xbox Series X is pretty much right there. And so, you know, just having more price options and more variety for, you know, stuff on the PC end is really fascinating. And as that stuff gets smoothed over on the tech side and usability side to where something like a Steam Deck or some of these other devices out there become even more consoleized in a way that anyone can pick them up and use them, I think there's something really cool about that. I think that there are some really cool options for players who consider themselves to be console players and would never think about a PC. Like, I think there is a time potentially coming where the PC will make even more sense to them. Obviously, all of this is then set against the background of tariffs and a lot of things on that front, right? Like, today is supposed to be the day for tariffs in Mexico, which could very well have an impact on physical copies of games, which may be the end of physical games if the economics of that don't work out in a way that makes any sense. And And obviously tariffs on Chinese goods would potentially cripple the GPU market, consoles, and a lot of other devices as well. And that's just from a gaming perspective. Obviously, yeah, there's, Canadian tariffs as well, which stands to really wreak a lot of havoc on the automobile industry. Just really, really fucking mind-blowingly dumb shit. Real crazy. But in the gaming sense, that it has a lot of potential to really fuck up physical games, and of course a lot of hardware and stuff that would come out of China. And GPUs are already fucking ridiculous, right? Like there's the idea of like them saying, hey guys, the 5090 is going to be $2,000 is like hilarious, because A, you can't find them anywhere, and B, when you do see them, they're like $2,700, or like Newegg is listing 5090s at like closer to $3,000 in a lot of cases. And it's that's just too much fucking money. If you tack a tariff onto that, then it's just like, okay, well, this is fucking insane. So yeah, I don't think there are a lot, to answer your actual question, I don't think there are any good reasons to have a yearly cycle for consoles, unless you really overhauled them to make them even more like PCs, so that you are taking a part out of them and putting an upgraded part in. I think the e-waste situation around a console that you toss after a year, or sell after a year, or whatever after a year, is crazy for the size of those things. Like there are no good reasons to refresh consoles any faster than they already are. And I think if you want that type of cadence, if you want the ability to upgrade when you want to upgrade and always have some new part right around the corner, the PC is there. The high-end PC market is what you're actually looking for there. And I don't think the console market could sustain that. I don't think that the consumers there are interested in anything that quickly. I think that anyone that craves that kind of, I need the newest, latest, I need more power, I think those players would be, have already moved on to, or would be better suited by moving over to PC, because that's what that market is. It's got a much wider swath of options to choose from there, at a ton of different price points, and there's always something new right around the corner. So good or bad, I think that's a lot of that stuff is right there. And that's going to do it. Thanks, everybody. I'll be back on Wednesday. I'll be back tomorrow with some more stuff. We'll hang out live and do our thing. And of course, on Friday, we're ranking 8-bit Nintendo games. And that's very exciting. And I am working on some other stuff in the meantime that I have to come up with a name for. And it's making me crazy, because every name I come up for is already taken. Every time I like a name, every time I come up with something, oh, actually, that would work. It's always like, oh, yeah, sorry, that's already the name of an improv podcast that started like 5 weeks ago. You're like, shit, fuck. It's been very frustrating. But yeah, no, I'm working on a few things there. More to say about that in the coming weeks, I suppose. And yes. In the meantime, head over to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. You can get an ad-free version of this podcast, as well as additional content available at multiple tiers of support. You can join the Gerstmann advisory panel, and you can suggest games for those Friday NES streams. Or you can get an ad-free podcast, get on the Discord, all that other stuff. Come on through and support the broadcast. I will see you next week on this podcast. Have a good one. Bye.